1 second. Right, welcome back to Inclusive Design 24 2019, brought to you in partnership with our gold supporters, Barclays Access and Intopia. Don't forget, you can subscribe to Inclusive Design 24 on YouTube by visiting youtube.com/inclusivedesign24 and hitting that subscribe button. Next up, we are happy to welcome Svetlana Kuznetsova, who is going to talk about accessibility for deaf people beyond video captions and sign language. Note that for this presentation, Svetlana will be typing and my co-host, Kerry Fisher, will be voicing her text. Additionally, at Svetlana's request, this session will not have a Q&A at the end, but still feel free to send any interesting comments or questions to ID24 hashtag on Twitter, and we'll see if we can get some answers for you after the session.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm an independent consultant living in New York City area. I'm excited to talk about accessibility for deaf people. Deafness is an invisible disability. You may not be able to tell that I'm deaf unless you see me wearing a conch ear implant on my head or communicating in sign language. Or you thought I'm ignoring you when you're saying excuse me repeatedly. I'm not ignoring you on purpose, of course. I want to mention that the word hearing impaired is no longer preferred by many deaf people. And by local, national, and international organizations of deaf and hard of hearing people. It was coined by the medical community looking at deafness from a pathological perspective. The term deaf and hard of hearing people is best used to describe them as a group. And it's a good idea to ask people individually how they prefer to be identified. For simplicity's sake, I will use the word deaf people throughout my presentation to describe with all kinds of hearing loss, to describe people with all kinds of hearing loss. Deaf people represent a pretty big number in the United States alone. We make up over 48 million people. Worldwide, we comprise over 466 million people. There are so many misconceptions about deafness that I cannot cover them all, so I will share a few examples. When people think about deafness, the image often comes up as a senior citizen using a hearing aid. But to look at me, I'm deaf and I'm not that old. Laughter. I grew up wearing hearing aids, and now I have a cochlear implant. Actually, more and more young people are going to doctors' offices because they have lost some sort of hearing. Mostly from exposure to loud noises. They're listening to music with earbuds on, high volume, or going to loud concerts. Continuous exposure to loud noises is the #1 cause of hearing loss. Age is #1. And #3 is disease or accident. And that's what happened to me. I was born with normal hearing to parents who can hear. No one in my family had a history of deafness or any disability. When I was 2 years old, I got sick with meningitis. And it was pretty bad enough to cause me to become profoundly deaf. I'm also one of the 90 to 95% of deaf people who came from hearing families. Many deaf people have hearing kids as well. So genetic deafness is very rare. Many people think that all deaf people know sign language. The vast majority of them don't know sign language. They primarily spoken languages. They use primarily spoken languages. Most of them are hard of hearing, individuals with progressive hearing loss, late deafened adults. And deaf people who had intensive speech therapy at a young age, like me. I didn't use sign language when growing up. I learned American Sign Language, or ASL, my 5th language, as an adult by mingling with people who are native or fluent signers. If I didn't have that opportunity, I would not have become a fluent signer or even know any sign language by now. Like any language, you need immersion. Also, sign languages are not the same in every country. American Sign Language is totally different from British Sign Language, for example. Their differences are more pronounced than the differences between American and British English. If a deaf person can communicate well orally, it doesn't mean that they can understand everything and everyone, even with hearing aids and implants. They do not cure deafness. Hearing doesn't equal to understanding. For example, you may see Chinese characters clearly, but you can't understand what they mean with the same with hearing devices. Some people like me can recognize only environmental sounds, while others can understand speech, but not at 100%. Many people assume that we can lip read. Lip reading is not magic. You can see only about 30% of words on someone's mouth. And there are many other factors that influence that as well. That's why many of us need additional visual access to information like text, sign language, or cued speech. If you want to communicate with a deaf person, it's best to ask by writing down. How do you prefer me to communicate with you? Please don't ask us how much we can hear, or if we can speak or lip read you. You are making us to accommodate you when it should be the other way around. If you don't have practice, deaf people may bluff and communication would fall apart. Depending on our needs, you may need to speak slower or move to a quieter place or write or type back and forth. If you know some sign language and the person is a signer, don't be afraid to use it. When deaf person participates in a group conversation, it's really important to include them. Don't say words like, never mind, it wasn't important, or I'll tell you later. Communication is important for us. Deafness is not a black and white issue. It's not either you can hear or not. Deafness really ranges along a continuum, from minor to moderate to profound hearing loss. People have a variety of communication needs and abilities. I will cover that in detail in my workshops on deaf awareness. But now I want to talk about websites. When people think about accessibility on websites for deaf people, they think video captioning. It's one of the issues. But I also want to mention another issue that many people don't know about. Online forms, like you see here, you're thinking, what's wrong with that? There's a phone number field, and it's requiring me to fill it out. Obviously, we cannot hear on the phone. But they may have some people can speak on a phone, but they may have a hard time hearing you. There are different types of relay services here in the USA that allow us to communicate with people on the phone, usually through a third-party operator, which is great, but there are some drawbacks. Many of us prefer to communicate directly through email or text, instant messaging, online chats, and video calls because it's 2019. And pretty much everyone is texting and using online chat. It's not only us deaf people who benefit from existing. More hearing people are preferring to use text instead. Of phone calls, especially millennials, one piece of research stated that if a phone number was required, less people would be willing to fill out the online forms. So if you leave the phone field as optional, the number of people signing up would increase, and your business would improve the conversion rate. So I advise you to offer more options for your customers to contact you, such as via email, texting, instant messaging, online chats, and video calls. Please don't limit yourself and your customers. To contact you via phone only, also considering hiring deaf people for call center positions, so that deaf customers could use sign language. Can communicate with them directly via video. Now I want to talk about how to approach different events. It may be any type of event like one-to-one conversation, a group conversation, a classroom, a business meeting, a small event, or a large-scale event. While I enjoy attending events that are accessible to me, there are many others that are not, including diversity and inclusion events. That's frustrating. For example, here is a message that I received from an event organizer after I made a request for interpreters. We are committed to making our events as accessible to as many members as possible. However, this event is just a networking mixer and will not have a formal presentation. I do not foresee a need for interpreters at this particular event. I do hope you can join us. Sadly, that happens very often. We face a lot of resistance from event organizers. The organizer mentioned in the example said that it's just an informal event, but it's a business networking event, which is different than a gathering of family and friends. I could communicate via typing on my phone. But it's not as effective as having communication through a sign language interpreter. I also wanted to mention that when I got this response, it came from a president of a local organization who is female. We're both women. I was disappointed that she dismissed me and my needs as a woman who is deaf. It's not for her to decide if I need interpreters or not. I often receive comments from people saying, "Hey, you are the first deaf person who's ever asked or communicated access. I've never had this before." I do want to mention that for many people, deafness carries a tremendous stigma. Many people don't want to disclose their hearing loss and are often in a state of denial about it. especially those who became deaf as adults. So to ask for accommodation, a person with hearing loss will perceive that as a bad thing. They will not ask for accessibility and will just try to fit in as much as possible. There are also many people, regardless of the cause of their deafness or their communication preferences, who are not always aware of their rights, or maybe are afraid to speak up, or just tired of fighting for access. There are many various types of access services, including but not limited to live captioning, sign language interpreters, oral interpreters, cued speech translators. Assistive listening devices are typically used by people who benefit from hearing aids and cochlear implants. Preferential seating may be requested. I personally prefer live captioning when listening to a speaker, and ASL interpreting for social interactions, for example. You might be wondering why I'm not using my own voice for my presentations. I can use my voice, but not everyone is able to understand my speech. I have a Russian accent and a deaf quality to my speech. I found it was more effective for me to type my online presentations or to have sign language interpreters voice my on-site presentations. So it's some basic information about communication access. That's something I go in more depth in my consulting services that I provided to businesses for over 10 years. In web, media, and event accessibility. I also have over 20 years of experience working with sign language interpreters, captions, and various service providers. Some are good and some are not good. When working with interpreters and captioners, it's important that not only they provide high quality services, but also show sensitivity and respect to deaf people by following their code of professional conduct or code of ethics. As per the code of ethics, access providers are refrained from offering advice, interjecting personal opinions, getting undue attention, and stepping out of their roles as access providers, amongst other things. That brings about accountability, responsibility, and trust to deaf people. Unfortunately, not all access providers follow the code of ethics. It's been a very sensitive topic in the deaf community. Event accessibility is not about focusing on providers or giving them undue attention, but ensuring that the needs of deaf people are met. It's important that deaf people feel comfortable attending events or working with providers. But sadly, they don't always have a voice in some services that are often determined by hearing people without consultation with deaf people. The hard work of good interpreters and captioners at events is always appreciated. However, when event organizers and attendees praise access providers or treat captions and sign language as a cool thing instead of as an important thing, access service for deaf people, it makes our needs and experiences less important. It's a large and complicated topic that is out of the scope of this presentation, but it's a very important issue not to be taken lightly. It's also something that event organizers may want to consider adding to their event code of conduct. If you want to better understand about code of ethics, feel free to ask me afterwards. There will also be a link to an article at the end of my presentation. Now I want to talk about media accessibility. Many of you know it's captions and transcripts, podcasts can be made accessible via transcripts. They have to be done in verbatim and to include every word that the person said, plus speaker identifications and sound description. Colorful language cannot be censored in text. If you hear it out loud and clear in audio, we are not little kids. There are deaf people who can swear like sailors. The video needs to have both captions and a transcript. You cannot choose one or the other. If you are posting the video with the transcript but don't include the captions, it's very difficult for us to manage our eye gaze up and down from the video image to the transcript. It's not a good experience. If you are providing just captions for the video, that means that deaf people who are blind cannot see captions. A video transcript is different from a podcast transcript and includes descriptions of important visual elements in the video. Many people can benefit from video transcripts. If you don't want to go through the whole video or have limited bandwidth, you can skim through the transcript. Don't just turn on auto captions. It's a really bad idea. My TEDx talk explains why. While speech technologies or automated speech recognition, or ASR, may be okay and event useful, in social settings, they are not suitable for professional content. International organizations of deaf and hard of hearing people also made a joint statement that it's still premature to replace human captioners with ASR, and more research and development is needed with participation of deaf people. Low quality captions are not better than no captions. Many deaf people call them craptions. Bad captions are not better than nothing because they cause cognitive dissonance for us deaf people. In the same way, bad audio makes you feel frustrated. Make sure to add captions to videos on all platforms if you are giving a presentation. And our slides are going to include e-videos or just videos. Make sure that those videos also include captions that are prepared in advance, even though you might have a live captioner provided during your presentation. You still need to have captions for your videos and your slides. Live captions and video captions are not the same. They follow different sets of quality guidelines and done by different captioners. Live captions are meant to be used in real time for events, webinars, news podcasts, broadcasts. Offline video captions are used for movies, video recordings, and post-production media in general. I'm sharing some basic examples of the differences between live captions and video captions. Good quality live captions are expected to have a minimum of 985 accuracy or 98% accuracy. If you see some mistakes here and there, it's expected. Live captions can be delayed for a few seconds and usually scroll up, like you see on the slide. Good quality video captions, on the other hand, are expected to have 100% accuracy rate and cannot have errors. They need to be synchronized with the speech. They pop up and are chunked in one or two short lines with logical grammatical breaks, like you see on this slide. I know it's tempting to record live captions so that you don't need to edit or to pay for video captions, but it's not the best practice, especially for professional content. Also, when live captions are chunked randomly in addition to being delayed, they are hard to read and process. It's like listening to speech with random annotations and pauses. So you cannot hire the same person for both types of captioning access. There is a different skill set for each type of caption. Live captions from an event needs to be cleaned up and properly edited for event video recordings by a captioner that specializes in post-production captions. If you share videos and podcasts online, please make sure to add captions and transcripts first before sharing. And don't leave out deaf people or make them wait for access. It happens quite often, especially with videos and podcasts about accessibility by non-disabled accessibility advocates. Honestly, it saddens me that of all people, they would leave us out, intentionally or not. There's a saying in the disability community, nothing about us without us. There are more examples of captioning quality guidelines and best practices. Captioning access is a large topic that I can talk about forever. And it's part of my consulting services. I just wanted to give you some basic idea of why quality speech to text access is important, and how live real captions and offline video captions are different. There are two ways to make captions and transcripts: by doing it yourself or by outsourcing services, depending on whether the content is personal or professional. You can create video captions and transcripts yourself. For your personal content, if you cannot afford professional services, there are many great tools and apps that allow you to do this, like YouTube or Cliptomatic. Crowdsourcing is not recommended for professional content. Captioning is an art that can be done well only by specialists who have had a lot of experience and training to create high quality captions and transcripts that are easy to read and understand. Low prices do not guarantee quality. There are many captioners that do not follow quality standards. I can advise you on how to ensure good captions for your media and events. Now I wanted to end my presentation by using my motto. Let's think outside the ears. You are familiar with the common expression, think outside the box. We live in a very audio-centered world. Many people don't realize that communication and information sharing doesn't have to come through one way. Hearing and speech there are many different ways to communicate and access information. If you're interested in learning more about deafness and accessibility solutions, feel free to reach out to me for consulting, training sessions, workshops. You can check out my TEDx talk about captioning access. I'm also working on a second edition of my book on that topic. Let me know if you want to be notified once the book is out. Here are the links. Thank you. The website is audio-accessibility.com. A link to the TEDx talk is audio/accessibility.com or TEDx/talk/high/quality/captions/and/ROI. The Code of Professional Ethics can be found at audio-accessibility.com or code-of-professional-ethics-for-captioners-and interpreters. Feel free to contact me via email if you have any questions. And thank you, Inclusive Design 24, for having me. And thank you all for joining me.
Well, thank you very much, Svetlana. That was a very interesting talk. And thank you very much, Carey, as well, for valiantly doing the voicing. No small feat there. If you like this session, hit that YouTube like button, and don't forget you can subscribe to youtube.com/inclusivedesign24 for future notifications. A reminder that Inclusive Design 24 is brought to you with thanks to our gold supporters, Barclays Access and Intopia, our silver supporters, Adobe and Siteimprove, and our bronze supporters, Samsung Internet, DQ Systems, and the Paciello Group, and is captioned by MyClearText. Inclusive Design 24 will be back on the hour with John Folio presenting SC135, More Than Just Autocomplete. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.